In this video, we are going to discuss about Jonathan Culler's structuralism and literature. Jonathan Culler is an American literary critic and also a professor of English and comparative literature at Cornell University. Now let us see the biography of Culler. He was born in 1944 in Cleveland, USA. He attended Harvard and received a Bachelor of Arts in History and Literature in 1966. Then he attended St. John's College, Oxford University and earned a B.Phil in Comparative Literature in 1968. In 1972, he received D.Phil in Modern Languages in the same college, that is St. John's College. In 1971, he married a poet named Veronica Forrest Thompson and divorced her in 1974. In 1976, he married Cynthia Chase, a university teacher and deconstructionist critic. He was fellow in French and director of studies in modern languages at Selwyn College, Cambridge University from 1969 to 1974 and fellow of Brasenose College, Oxford and university lecturer in French from 1974 to 1977. He was a visiting professor of French and comparative literature at Yale University in 1975. In 1988, he served as the president of Semiotic Society of America and at present he is serving as the professor of English and comparative literature at Cornell University. In 1975, he received James Russell Lowell Prize for Structuralist Poetics from Modern Language Association of America. He published many books on criticism, literary theory, and structuralism. In this essay, Structuralism and Literature, Culler says that structuralism is not a difficult theory to understand. It is directly applicable to the practical study and teaching of literature. In structuralism, the objects of study are literary works. In this essay, Culler tries to explain two things. Firstly, he explains what is structuralism and how is it relevant to the study of literature. Then secondly, he outlines a structuralist approach to literature with examples. Culler says that structuralism is not a new way of interpreting literary works but an attempt to understand how it is that literary works do have a meaning for us. Roland Barthes, another critic, defined structuralism as a method for the study of cultural artifacts, that is, cultural objects, derived from the methods of contemporary linguistics. There are two possible ways of using linguistic methods in the study of literature. The first one is the language of literary works, and the second one is how one might construct a poetics which stands to literature as linguistics stands to language. When analyzing the fundamental principles of linguistics, another critic, Ferdinand de Saussure, put forward the distinction between law langue and law parole. Law langue or langue defines language as a system which includes the formal rules, structures and limitations of language. Law parole or parole means language in use, that is utterances or speech. According to Saussure, langue is the proper object of linguistics. He says study of langue is an attempt to determine the nature of a system of relations, appositions and differences, which makes possible parole. Again, he says that to learn a language, one should master its linguistic system. In this essay, Culler discusses about the relationship between semiology and structuralism. Semiology means the study of signs and symbols in languages. He says that structuralism and semiology are based on two fundamental things: social and cultural phenomena. The social and cultural phenomena are defined by a network of relations, both internal and external. These social and cultural phenomena have meaning. They are signs. Structuralism is not a method for producing new and startling interpretations of literary works. It asks how the meanings of literary works are possible. When Culler speaks about the structuralist perspective, he says that its perspective is to take linguistics as a model and to think of the relationship between an utterance and the speaker or hearer. Here he says about the relationship between sounds and its meaning. A sentence comes to the hearer as a series of physical events, a sequence of sounds. We hear this sequence of sounds and give it a meaning. The hearer's implicit subconscious knowledge assimilates the phonological, grammatical, semantic, and syntactic structure of the language and finds a meaning. Then Culler moves from language to literature. He says the relationship between the interpretation of language and literature. For example, interpreting a poem. A person who knows English but who has no knowledge of the literary conventions of English will be totally confused if a poem is given to him for interpretation. He may understand the words and sentences but may not know how to make sense out of it. Here he lacks the complex system of language which is called literary competence. That is the ability to make a sense out of words and sentences. In this essay, Culler gives much importance to literary competence. He says that literary competence is very necessary for each and every reader to understand a literary work. If he has the literary competence, he can differentiate the meaning between a statement and a poem. Here he gives an example and explains how to interpret a statement and a poem. The lines of the poem and the statement are same. Here the words are same but the meaning will change. Now see the example. Yesterday I went into town and bought a lamp. It is a statement. It gives a direct meaning to us. When the statement is written as a poem, it gives a different meaning. In this statement, yesterday I went into town and bought a lamp. The word yesterday denotes the particular day, that is yesterday. But in the poem, yesterday refers not a particular day but all possible yesterdays. This poem ends swiftly and inconclusively. From this example, we can understand that the meaning of the poem differs from prose. Moreover, the meaning of the poem depends upon the readers. Again, Culler says that in new criticism, the meanings are within the text itself. He says the poem is a harmonious totality. It is like a natural, self-sufficient organism. A reader or a critic has to read or to approach a poem without any preconception and appreciate fully as it is or appreciate fully what is there. But he has to keep in his mind that language of poetry differs from language of prose or everyday speech. Structuralism leads us to think of the poem not as a self-contained entity or an individual unit, but as a sequence which has meaning only in relation to the literary system or rather to the institution of literature. The sense of a poem's completeness depends on the interpretative process of the writer or reader, that is, the knowledge of language or literary training of the writer or the reader. Then Culler discusses about the process of literary education. He says that the study of one literary work facilitates the study of the next literary work, so that the readers gain the knowledge of how to read a work. They have come to know the general formal principles and distinctions in reading the works. In this process of literary education, the students or the readers can unconsciously learn the possibility of coherent and comprehensive theory of literature. It is a critical enterprise. In this process, we can find some obstacles too. The first one is people are interested in exercising their understanding of literature. So, the critics produce new and subtler interpretations of literary works. Secondly, it is very difficult to determine what will count as literary competence. Literary competence is the result of interpersonal experience of reading. So, there are a number of acceptable readings for any poem. Color says that literary competence is necessary for critics and readers. They must know how to read and what counts for reading. He argues that common basis for reading must be understood clearly and conventions which make literature must be made more explicit. In this essay, Color describes the artificiality of literature. Though literature is written in the language of information, it is not used in the language game of giving information. The language of lyric and the language of letter writing differs from one another. The strangeness of the language is the primary fact we have to deal with. To overcome the strangeness, we have to naturalize the text and making it something of a communication. The French theorist called the process of naturalization as ressemblization. In this, we transform the text to an order of resemblance or verisimilitude. Example, interpretation of a metaphor. Here, Color quotes the phrase an enchanted boat written by Shelley. In a poem, Shelley calls his soul as an enchanted boat. Then Color says about premature naturalization. The conventions of literature guide the process of naturalization and provide alternative to premature naturalization. Here, naturalization taking place prematurely. Here, Color gives Donne's poem The Good Morrow as an example. This poem is a best example for premature naturalization. In this poem, the protest to the sun itself is a figure. The situation of utterance of a poem is a fiction. We naturalize the poem as a love poem, but it expresses the strong, self-sufficient passion of the poet. Naturalization is the process of making something intelligible by relating it to what is already known and accepted as resemblable. For example, metaphors. In the process of naturalization, we are guided by various codes of expectations. In discussing prose fiction, Roland Barthes identifies 5 different codes. Color takes just 2 by way of example. They are semicode and symbolic code. The first one is semicode. This is a good case of literary conventions which produce intelligibility. As we go through a novel, we pick out items which refer to the behavior of characters and use them to create a character. This involves considerable semantic transformation. Cultural stereotypes also help us in building character. For example, the correlation between perfect blemished complexions and perfect blemished character. Then the next one is symbolic code. This is the oddest one. There are a few symbols declared by tradition, but most potential symbols are defined by complex relations with the context. Example, rose. The symbolic code teleologically limits the range of plausible interpretations. There are sets of semantic appositions: life and death, simplicity and complexity, harmony and strife, body and soul, certainty and doubt, imagination and intellect, etc. Color quotes a short poem by William Carlos Williams. The poem is: This is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the ice box and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet, so cold. Now let's see the interpretation of this poem. As a premature naturalization, the poem says: The poet ate the plums and left this note of forgiveness on the table for his wife, writing it as verse because he was a poet. When we see the structuring of the poem, we can see binary appositions, that is, two contrasts in the poem. On the one side it says delicious, sweet and cold, and on the other side it shows the priority of domestic rules about eating. In interpreting this poem, the thematic structure of the poem differs. Readings of the poem depend upon some common interpretative process or method relying on assumptions about poetry and structural models. Then Color says that in modern poetry, the common everyday statement can become a poem, but it lacks the sense of significance. Finally, he says that the meaning of the poem will lie in the kind of operations which it forces us to perform, in the extent to which it resists and complies with our expectations about literary science. It is in this sense that structuralist poetics can be hermeneutic. If we become accustomed to think of literature as a set of interpretative norms and operations, we will be better equipped to see how and where the work resists us and how it leads to that questioning of the self and of received modes of ordering the world which has always been the result of the greatest literature. In this video, we have seen the summary of Jonathan Culler's essay, Structuralism and Literature, in a very detailed manner. Hope you would have understood the essay very clearly. Thanks for watching.